Hello everyone and welcome to Passion Vines TV. I'm your host Michael Bray, and for those of you who know us, we're quickly becoming one of the most competitive and respected wine experiences in the world by connecting our passion with yours. And today is a special day in that we get to connect our passion with our guest and internationally acclaimed winemaker, John Gibson. John, thanks for being here.
Pleasure. Pleasure's all
This is, in the wine business, there's you have your heroes, just like in any industry, and hopefully somebody will answer this phone, but just ignore that. You have your heroes within the industry, and today's one of those days where you get to connect with one. And as many of you know who we are and our passion for wine and spirits and beer and so forth, John is one of those guys that really, you look at and you say, this is the reason why we do what we do, because he makes wine that tastes and looks and smells like this. So again, I can't thank you enough for being here.
It's my pleasure.
We have 3 wines here tonight, and before we head out and meet and greet all of our friends, but the first wine we're going to taste is the SALEXIS Chardonnay, vintage 2005. And maybe John, you can tell us a little bit about this wine.
Well, I'll tell you first about SALEXIS. I've had the pleasure for the last 30 years to make and live the winemaking dream in the Napa Valley. We started SALEXIS as our own brand in 1998. We make Chardonnay, Merlot, and Cabernet. And one thing in difference, I make my day job by making wine for other people, but SALEXIS is our own brand. We started this as our daughter's college fund, and her name is Sarah Alexis, hence the name SALEXIS.
I love that idea. Yeah.
We like to think it's also going to be our 401k if everything goes well, but we make 3 wines. We do not grow our own grapes, in difference to what I do to my clients. What we've managed to do is to convince other people who have vineyards in what we consider to be the best areas of the Napa Valley to plant grapes for us. So we have small plots of land here, there, everywhere that grow what we consider to be some very good grapes.
Okay.
This is Chardonnay that is grown for me by Andy Beckstoffer, who's the single largest landowner in Napa County. Very well known for grapes everywhere, primarily his Cabernets in the Oakville area. But Andy planted this for me back in 1991, and we've been making the wine since 2001. A little different than most people make Chardonnay. There's about 6 of us in California doing this, where we barrel ferment naturally, no bacteria added, no yeast added. We let the wine go through malolactic, and then we leave it on the lees for almost 2 years.
Wow.
So it's a very Burgundian wine. I spent some time in Burgundy in 1991. And learned a lot about what they do there, and almost all of the Premier Cru and Grand Cru white Burgundies are made this way. But very few people in California do it because it's costly and it's time intensive.
Sure.
But what it does is it makes the wine rounder, softer, creamier, and then takes the oak down. It makes the wine more balanced. And balance is the most important word to us in winemaking, and you'll find that in all of our wines.
Yep. Yep. Let's take a smell here. As I'm sitting here with the wine underneath me, I mean, it's so pungent. Unbelievable.
The second year on the lees, we do not stir them. We stir them in the first year, but in the second year we do what we call a stir and rack. So basically we stir the wine one day, we rack the wine the next morning, and put it back in what we call light lees. And at that point all we do is taste. We taste every month and we decide, is it getting there, is it getting there? And at some point in time we say, okay, it is there, and then we bottle. One thing we don't do with SALEXIS, and actually all of my other clients' wines as well, is we don't make wine on the schedule.
Okay.
We don't have a marketing department screaming at me saying we need the wine we need yesterday, like it has been a lot of my time. I made the wines for Stag's Leap Wine Cellars for 10 years, and the day after harvest was done, I met with the national sales director, and she told me when I was bottling my wines, because she told me when she needed them. It was as time went on and we got making more and more and more, I said, geez, is this the way to be doing this? And I said to myself that at some point in time when I make my own wine, I'm not going to have that happen.
Yeah.
So we bottle our wines when we think they're ready, and we release them when we think they're ready.
Love it. So there's a certain degree of integrity that you won't work without.
Absolutely. That's something that comes with time, comes with watching other people make mistakes, and it's something we won't do.
Sure. Side note, but very similar. Have you watched the Brewmaster episodes? Okay. Well, Sam last night from Dogfish emptied out all of the 120-minute IPA. And again, it comes down to integrity and not compromising what you stand for. So as a brand, I love to hear that.
Well, we'll talk about that more when it comes to the Reserve Cabernet as well.
Am I right in saying, I mean, this wine, I mean, massive, but yet, like you said, balanced. Very massive on the nose, but very elegant in the finish. Would you say this is more of a food wine?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, it has lots of honeysuckle, lots of fruit, tropical fruit, pineapple, citrus, but it's not an over oaky, overly buttery wine.
Right.
So therefore, one thing we say it as our mission statement, that we believe wine is best accompanied by food, family, and friends.
Yep.
Food comes first, wine comes second. Unfortunately, a lot of people in the wine industry, and certainly the critics, have pushed us as winemakers to make wine the main course.
Okay.
And that's something that we don't believe in.
Okay.
Wine should enhance the pleasure of food.
Sure, sure. Should we take a little rinse here?
Certainly.
So, the next wine we're tasting is SALEXIS Cabernet 2005.
This is our first release of Cabernet. We hung our hat on Chardonnay and Merlot for the first 7 years. The reason being is that my day job is making Cabernet for other people.
Okay.
Then when the movie Sideways came out, we basically took it in the shorts kind of on making Merlot. It was something that people kept saying, well, geez, you know, Merlot is Merlot, but Cabernet is Cabernet. Where's your Cabernet? We chose not to make Cabernet because that's my day job, and we always thought that we'd bite the hand that fed us if we competed with my own clients. But at a certain point in time, my wife and I, primarily Anne, finally came around to the idea that making Cabernet was what we should be doing. And we make Cabernet in a way in two different styles. One is the Napa Valley and one is the Reserve, albeit when we bottled these wines originally they didn't have labels on them because we weren't sure exactly what we were going to call them.
Okay.
I live in a perfect world, I like to think so, and someday we'll actually be bottling the wines separate from each of the vineyards that we get our fruit from. But in a post 9/11 economy and what have you, making 5 or 6 different Cabernets that would compete with one another isn't such a smart idea.
Right.
So Anne, in a way, kind of smacked me across the side of the head and said, you're going to do what you do for your clients, which is make a regular and a reserve. But I basically said, well, we're not going to do that. We're going to make a restaurant-styled wine, which is the Napa Valley, which is a softer, more supple, a little fatter, less acidic wine. And the Reserve is what I call my bells and whistles, everything I'd like to do every day, but we can't necessarily sell that every day.
Fair enough. And production. If we could go back to the Chardonnay, how much wine?
Well, we make, collectively speaking, between 800 and 1,000 cases of wine a year, of all the wines. And really the volume is dictated by what the vineyards produce, because we're contractually bound to pick every berry that's in our space. We've convinced people to plant things for them. We have to take what they planted for us. And in some years, 2005 vintage, these wines are from, was a very large vintage. It kind of took us by surprise and kind of hit us in the pocketbook, because we weren't really quite prepared to be buying that much fruit. Whereas then conversely, in a year like 2010, which we just finished, disastrously low in yield. And weather came into play in this vintage as well. It was a very challenging vintage, but in average, I would say we make probably 750 to 800 cases. And over time, we'd like to see that number, increase, but that'll have to do completely with the economy and wine sales.
Sure.